Laker fans, welcome to another preview video. Big game coming up for the Lakers, playing the New York Knicks, hosting them at Crypto in LA. Always a fun matchup whenever these two get together. Two of the biggest brands, not only in basketball, but in all of sports. The last time these two teams played, people kind of forget about it because of that Luka Doncic trade happened that night. But the Lakers actually, without Anthony Davis at the time, because technically the trade hadn't gone down yet, blew out this team. Absolutely destroyed them. LeBron had an unbelievable game. Reeves was excellent. They Max Christie, even when he was still a Laker, they really took it to this team, and it was a big Saturday night win for the Lakers, but it obviously got drowned out with the Luka news. So we're gonna get into that a little bit later. First, let's talk about how the Lakers avoid that trap game loss. It was interesting for the Lakers in that game because heading into it, I was freaked out about that game, thinking that this could be. It's an easy game to take lightly. It's an easy game. You're hosting at the time a 17-44 Pelicans team has really sold off all their assets. They traded Brandon Ingram. DeJounte Murray's hurt for the year. This is not a team that's contending. They're kind of trying to rebuild. They went in to try to make a championship level roster, and it just couldn't really come together due to injuries and whatnot. But this was the first game it felt like the Lakers were playing just kind of a normal game in the sense of that they weren't on prime time. They weren't a nationally televised game, which most of these games have been since the Lakers got Luka Doncic for obvious reasons. And then over the weekend, the Sunday game against the Clippers wasn't, but crosstown rivalry, Lakers-Clippers is always an electric game. So this is the first game you kind of looked at and go, it's squeezed in there in the schedule. You could be looking ahead to New York, Boston, Denver in the next week. This is an easy game to kind of lose. But to the Lakers' credit, they came out and absolutely dominated, won by over 20 points. Scored 136 points on the night. Luka was excellent. LeBron was excellent, hitting the 50,000 point mark, which was just awesome to see. Jaxson Hayes, 19 points, 10 rebounds. He was everywhere in this game. There's an X account that's good, Basketball Forever. Talked about how Jaxson Hayes is the number one defensive center in the NBA since February 1st. His defensive rating is 102.5, and he's played a minimum of 20 minutes per game. That was the criteria for it. He's been fantastic, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about how he's some all-star center or something like that, but for this team, considering that the Lakers this year are going to be relied on their guards heavily, they're going to be relying on them mostly because that's how the way the team's built, giving up an Anthony Davis. The Lakers, even with Anthony Davis, didn't have a ton of depth in the front court, but that was kind of the thinking was that when the Lakers got Luka, they're not going to be able to contend this year because you don't have the center depth. You don't have all this. Well, Jaxson Hayes playing out of his mind, and you've seen the Lakers go up against some really good teams with some really good centers, Jokic in Denver, multiple other teams in there, Minnesota with some good front court options, and really played very well. So the time to start putting some respect on Jaxson Hayes' name. He was great in this game. Jared Vanderbilt with 12 points. He's kind of developing a little bit of a shot, which is scary for other teams because he's going to play anyway because he's the best defender on the team. But if he can develop to where he's hanging in that 8 to 12 point range a game and giving you something off the bench where teams do have to respect the fact of him as an offensive player because, frankly, for many years, he just played the defense and teams were like, please shoot the ball. Well, he's been making teams play a little bit in the last week, which has been big. And Dalton Connect seems like he's finally kind of getting back, getting over the failed trade. He was one of the hottest rookies early in the year and kind of fell off the map a little bit, out of the rotation. Then with the trade, couldn't really get back on track. And due to injuries, due to Goodwin being out and Reeves and Rui, he's had to step up. And I think he's earned himself back in the rotation and certainly will be a big player down the stretch for the Lakers. So big win for the Lakers. Glad they stacked that W and could put that in the rearview mirror. New York, always a fun matchup, as I mentioned earlier. Knicks, Lakers. What else do you got to say? In LA, the Lakers opened as 1.5 point favorites in this game, and the line has moved to the Lakers being favored by 3.5. So a lot of money coming in on the Lakers, especially in the tight spread. The total has stayed the same at 228.5. That's telling us that they think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, especially considering the Lakers defense. Had they been number one in defensive efficiency the last month and a half, kind of surprised at this total, but I do get it. They are a really good offensive team. They're currently 5th overall in averaging about 117 points per game. So New York can score. The thing for the Knicks is they're a very star-driven team. If you on NBA 2K, they're unbelievable because they got guys that can drop 50 any night. But I think the problem for the Knicks and why people haven't taken them as seriously this year is they're clearly the third best team in the East. They are not Cleveland and they're not Boston. Part of those problems were a couple weeks ago, they actually got blown out by Cleveland and then they got blown out by Boston in the span of 3 days. So people are like, well, that's what you got to go through if you want to get out of the East. Now, Knicks fans have been clamoring in New York media about how Mitchell Robinson coming back is going to change all that. Remains to be seen. I don't know if that does it, but I do think that it gives you another option against Cleveland and Boston in their size, where it's not just Karl-Anthony Towns. But, again, that remains to be seen. This team had won 3 straight games, Philly, Memphis, and Miami, and then they lost to the Warriors in their last game, 114-102. Karl-Anthony Towns did not play in the game. Of course, as it becomes with every game now, it seems like every injured player comes back against the Lakers. Karl-Anthony Towns will be playing in this game. He'll be back because he was out for undisclosed reasons, they said. But so he'll be playing. Mitchell Robinson's a game-time decision, but I expect him to go. OG Anunoby is a game-time decision as well. But again, he played in the last game. Expect him to play. Precious Achiuwa is questionable due to left hamstring tightness. That's a big player for them off the bench because that's kind of been the problem for the Knicks this year is the bench production in terms of the starting 5 is unbelievable. Jalen Brunson leads the team with 26 points per game, 7 assists per game. Bridges gives you about 17 a night. Hart, former Laker, gives you about 14 a night. OG Anunoby hangs around that 16 points per game mark. And then Karl-Anthony Towns averaging a double-double with a little over 24 points per game and 13 rebounds per game. The Knicks are actually 3-3 without him. As I said in the last game, they missed him. So that starting 5 can go up against pretty much anyone in the league, and they are going to have a good shot to score points on you. The problem is the bench. And Mitchell Robinson coming back does help a lot. Very good center for them, but had missed the entire season up to this point. Precious Achiuwa has been a nice find for them. He hangs around the 7-point mark. Miles McBride's probably their best bench player. He averages about 9 points per game. At the point guard spot, really spells Jalen Brunson as well as Mikal Bridges, especially if one of them get in foul trouble. And then Cameron Payne, the former Sun, kind of rounds it out. Thibodeau really only plays 9 guys. That's kind of the way he goes. He keeps his rotation pretty tight. And I think that's been kind of the problem with this Knicks team is they'd be better off to stagger some of their players. Bring Hart off the bench or bring Bridges off the bench because they kind of lack that scoring in the second level. It'll be interesting to see what they do against the Lakers, though, because for all I said earlier about Jaxson Hayes being great, and he has been, they could try to exploit the Lakers' lack of size in terms of getting Jaxson Hayes in foul trouble. He did have 5 fouls in the last game, especially because he's got to play so much because he's really the only center. Alex Len hasn't really shown that he should be out there for the Lakers. It'll be interesting to see if Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns, they deploy them together and send Hart or Bridges to the bench and try to kind of go massive size against the Lakers. I don't know if they'll do that. They usually stagger Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns. That's kind of, well, I guess we haven't really seen too much of Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, but I'm expecting that that's what they're going to do is they're going to stagger them a little bit. But if they do try to do the two big thing, then Jaxson Hayes cannot get in foul trouble, especially early, because it probably means LeBron's going to have to drop down and guard Towns or Robinson. Maybe you got to throw Len in there just to eat up a few fouls. But I wonder if that's going to happen, and then they give Hart an opportunity to kind of run the bench and provide some scoring there. But this should be a fun game. I'm excited for this one. On the Lakers side of things, for the injury report, Luka and LeBron are both probable. They've been just on the injury report most days, kind of injury management. Austin Reeves is going to be back for this game. He is probable to return, which is great because he got injured in that game last Friday. The only question for the Lakers is Jordan Goodwin. He's questionable right now with a right ankle sprain. Hopefully he can go. But Rui, Kleba, and Morris are all out. Rui with the injury. Kleba's still hurt. And Morris is dealing with an illness. So big stretch for the Lakers. Knicks. Then Boston is going to be electric on Saturday night. I know ABC is probably thrilled that they got that game. And then Denver next week starts another really tough stretch against teams above 500. But the Lakers have been excellent. Their last 9 games against teams over 500, they've won them all. And that's kind of what we were talking about in the last video is I was more scared of the teams that you looked at as bad because the Lakers' last couple losses were to Charlotte and the Jazz, 2 teams that you go, why the hell are the Lakers losing to them? But they really do seem to show out. It's a primetime game, so can't wait for this one. This one's going to be electric. Alan's going to get you guys on his show in the morning. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and then we'll be getting Alan at night doing the recap, the post game. As always, hopefully we're talking about a Laker W, and then I will be back on Friday with a video for the Boston game on Saturday night. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and go Lakers.